Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to my native Scotland once again. We're going to go back to Ellon, just outside of Aberdeen, which is of course home to Brewdog. So for this one we're going to try one of the other beers that was released in the September 21st small partier in Systembolaget over here in Sweden. So we're going to have a taste of the Hop Hacker. They're describing this one as a Savage Double IPA. It comes in at 8.7% and we'll see how we get on with this one. You know, as you've seen in a couple of my reviews, when it comes to Brewdog, I do think the quality of the IPAs has dropped in the last couple of years. The stouts and porters, the darker beers, do tend to have, or in my experience, have stayed a fairly good standard, but the IPAs have been criticised quite a lot compared to what they used to be. You know, Punk IPA and Jackhammer were absolute beasts, but you know, I think that the recipe for Punk IPA has been played with and messed around with a lot. So I'm interested to see how this one turns out. One of my favourite IPAs from Brewdog was always the Hardcore IPA. That was probably my favourite Brewdog beer, along with Dogma back in the day, and I loved Riptide as well. You know, Brewdog were the ones who kind of got me into the whole American style craft beer, if you like, because when I was studying chemistry back in Aberdeen, they were brewing all of these different styles of beer from across the world. So those were the main three that really got me: the Hardcore, the Dogma Scotch Ale, and then the Riptide Sweet Stout. So I'm very interested to see how this one comes across. Of course, I was quite gutted when they retired the Hardcore IPA, so I'm wondering if this one is intended to be, you know, one of the replacements for it. So curious to see how they've got on with this one, and like I say, I do hope that the quality of the IPAs from Brewdog start to pick up again. But interested to try this one, and as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, a link to my other reviews that I've done from Brewdog before. No doubt there will be some more in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brewdog then before we taste the beer itself. So Brewdog is basically the love child of two guys. It was James Watt and Martin Dickey, and they were founded in 2007 at a small brewery in the Keswick Industrial Estate in Fraserburgh in the very northeast corner of Scotland. But more recently, of course, they've moved their main brewing facility to Ellon, which is closer to the city of Aberdeen, where I used to study chemistry. Fraserburgh is right on the tip of the nose. I always say that Scotland looks like a monster's head, and Fraserburgh is right up on the very tip of the monster's nose, if you like. From what I remember, Martin Dickey comes from an engineering background. It was, I wanted to say it was chemical engineering that he studied, and I think he studied brewing at Heriot Watt in Edinburgh as well. James Watt comes from a legal background. He was trained in law and economics, if I remember correctly. But these guys were known initially for being a very experimental brewery, and particularly for their strong beers at one point as well. They had the Tactical Nuclear Penguin, the Sink the Bismarck, and the End of History. They held the title of World's Strongest Beer on 3 separate occasions, but then they were beaten by Schwarzbräu, if I remember correctly, from Germany. They were doing some really interesting stuff over there as well, and you know, they're really inspired by the American craft brewing renaissance, if you like. If you try some of the early Stone beers and then compare them to some of the early Brewdog ones, you really could see the influence in there. But they began opening up their brew pubs. They've got a chain of brew pubs now that started opening up in 2010. I was there at the opening night of their one in Aberdeen, just across from Marshall College. Don't remember much of the night, so I must have had a very good time, but they've got lots of different ones across the world just now. I think they've got one in Sao Paulo in Brazil, if I'm remembering correctly, and the furthest away one on the other side of the world so far, I think, is Tokyo over in Japan, which I have been to as well actually, so I need to try and get to the one in Sao Paulo in Brazil, just to say that I've been there. But yeah, as I say, inspired much by the American craft brewing renaissance. They've grown a hell of a lot over the last few years. A lot of that has been down to their Equity for Punks program, which is where fans of the brewery can invest and they get discounts on the beers on the web shop, and discounts in the bar and things like that as well. They've also recently opened up a second brewery over in Columbus, Ohio as well. They've started distilling spirits which are released under the name Lone Wolf, and they've also, I think they've also finished their Overworks brewery now, which is just next to the main brewery in Ellon in Aberdeen, which is their sour beer facility, and they've released some of the overworked stuff as well. I've not tried any of those yet. That's something I do need to try and see how they're getting on with the sour beers. So yeah, when I get back to Scotland, hopefully I can try some of those and review those for you on the channel. But of course, I've been a little bit critical of Brewdog in recent times because they are becoming more of a corporate entity, and you know, the customer service levels and things like that have dropped. There's a lot of marketing buzzwords and all these kind of things going on with Brewdog, but we're not going to talk too much about that. We're going to judge them on the beer. As I said, the IPA quality, I think, has generally has dropped over the last few years, but the stouts and the porters and things like that, the dark beers, have maintained their quality. They had a very good brewer back in the day called Stuart Bowman, who I believe is no longer working with Brewdog, but he always produced some really quality stuff from what I remember. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Brewdog just now. They're always opening new bars and things like that, always releasing new gins, and they are working on the whiskies at the moment, but they're releasing new gins, and you can check out all the stuff on the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook, but as I say, there's a lot of media and marketing buzzwords and stuff goes on that. But yeah, on the side here, as I always say, I like to read out these Brewdog blogs. So it says here, hop hacker, prepare to be hacked. This bone-dry IPA will infuriate your senses in seconds. Beautifully unhinged, aggressively hoppy and savagely bitter. Aromas of sticky resin, fresh-cut grass, citrus pith, floral and stone fruit notes spread like a virus across the palate, bringing complexity and depth to this ruthlessly hop-centric beer. And just when you thought it was all over, the bitterness of reboots kicks in. Shut down and go again. Hop hacker, resistance is futile. So yeah, a lot of kind of marketing buzzy words in there. Again, there you can see the standard Brewdog label on this one. I do like their symbol, actually. I have to admit, that is one thing I do like about it. I do miss the old labels that Brewdog had. The old labels that they had originally, I felt were a lot better. There you can see the Brewdog bottle cap on this one. But yeah, you know, standard presentation from Brewdog, nothing really new or surprising there. Some of the bottles have this little bit of glassware there. I'm not sure how well you can see that. There you can see the Brewdog shield is just on the top of it as well. But like I say, this one is an 8.7% double IPA, and we'll see how we get on with this one. So yeah, let's crack it open and see how we get on. I was having a little Google around for this beer, and as far as I can see, I think this one might be an exclusive release for the Swedish market. They had one of the ones in the My Name Is series, the Hello My Name Is series, and that was an exclusive for the Swedish market as well. I forget what the name, which one that was, but I remember it had it was Cloudberries. It was a Cloudberry IPA. I forget what the name of it is now though, like I said, but they had that one. And when I was doing a quick Google of this one, as far as I could see, it hadn't been released anywhere else other than Sweden, and there wasn't even a listing on the Brewdog website on the do-it-yourself dog. That's one of the things about Brewdog as well. They release all their recipes so you can practice home brewing and make clone beers and things like that. So that is one of the things they do that is kind of pretty cool, and you can smell some really nice fruity notes off this beer as you open it up. The aroma is actually quite good on this one. So as you can see, there is a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head on this one. That's going to fade away just to be a very thin foamy layer. If I hold this beer up to the light, I think it's fair to say it is quite it's almost a straw colour, but there is just a little tint of orange to this one. It is crystal clear actually. There's condensation on the glass, so that's making it appear a little bit more opaque than it actually is, but this one is a crystal clear beer. I'm guessing that it's been filtered before they've put it into the bottles. But as you can see, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But in terms of colour and things like that, you know, it is kind of what you would expect from an IPA. It doesn't look too dissimilar from the Punk IPA that you'll get in the Brewdog bar. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then with this one and just see how we get on there. As I was saying, you get a nice little bit of juicy fruit coming out of this one. I do suspect from the aroma there's a little bit of Citra or something being added to this one. It does smell quite similar to Citra actually. Yeah, so with this one, yeah, a little bit of passion fruit in there. That could be, you know, that could be Ella, or it could be Galaxy or something like that. There could be a little bit of Galaxy in here. There's definitely some passion fruit in that beer. A little bit of mango, I think, as well. If I was guessing, I think maybe some Galaxy and Citra in this one. The Galaxy's becoming a really, really popular hop, the Australian one these days. Australian hops are really getting themselves out there. But yeah, passion fruits, I think mangoes as well. Not really any oranges or anything to this one, I would say, because I was wondering if there was a little bit of mosaic in there from the way the aroma came out, but I don't think so. I'm not really getting much in the way of oranginess in the aroma, but that said, you know, sometimes with mosaic, the aroma can lean a little bit more towards blueberries, and it'll always be tangerines and or blueberries that you'll get in the taste from mosaic. And I can pick up a little bit of an almost blueberryish note to this one, so we'll see how we get on in the tasting of this beer. But yeah, definitely, as I say, mainly mangoes, mainly passion fruits in there as well, that sort of stone fruity kind of quality. Maybe a little hint of pineapple or something like that. It does have a little bit of that pineapple-y note, but some lychees, maybe a little bit of gooseberry, and as I say, I reckon maybe just a little touch of blueberry or something like that. It's kind of a citrusy beer, this one. In terms of the sort of grassy floral side of things, for me, this one leans a little bit towards the grassy side of things. There's a little touch of floral quality there, but more than anything else, I think this is a kind of grassy one. There is a little touch of a slightly earthy note to this beer as well. So maybe, it could well be that they've used the likes of whole melon or something like that in there. Because it does, the earthiness that comes out of this one, it could even be Mandarina Bavaria actually, but as I say, the orange notes don't come out that much. There are some really nice high alpha acid German hops these days. The earthiness that comes out of this one reminds me a little bit of the German noble earthiness, because that's the really cool thing about the high German alpha acid hops. They retain that distinctive kind of noble, earthy, floral kind of quality, but they've got the juicy fruit things that you'd expect of the New Zealand or the American hops or the Australian ones and things like that. It's really interesting, the aroma of this one. Just take a little bit of time and enjoy it. In terms of the malt base, it's almost got a little bit of a boozy thing to it. There is a little bit of a whiff of alcohol coming out of this beer, which, yeah, not too sure about that. But yeah, a little bit of bready note in there. I think there's some kind of biscuity sweetness to it as well. It's not quite strong enough to be caramel. But yeah, a little bit of biscuity note, a little bit of bready things. Kind of what you would expect from a double IPA, to be honest. So I will say straight away, before I taste this beer, I probably will compare this one to the hardcore IPA, because that was one of my kind of go-to bigger beers, if you like, when it came to craft beer. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So this one is the Hop Hacker, as Brewdog described it, a savage double IPA at 8.7% from Brewdog in Ellon in Aberdeenshire in Scotland. One of the small partiers that we had over here in Sweden on the 21st of September 2018. Let's get stuck into this one then. Slange, skål. Yeah, I mean, it's just a sort of middle of the road beer, this. It's not, you know, when they're calling it Hop Hacker and saying it's a savage double IPA, you just expect a little bit more from it, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing overly wrong with this beer, but then again, there's nothing particularly exciting about it, if that makes sense. That's one of the things, and I mean, maybe in some ways, when it's Brewdog, you do hold Brewdog to a high standard because of what they did back in the day. That is one of the things you always have to remember when reviewing the Brewdog beers. But again, this one, it's just, compared to what Brewdog used to do, it's just a bit boring. That's it. And it's kind of weird because there's stouts and porters and stuff like that. The new ones that they do, they're not boring. So why is it that they can still do the dark beers quite nicely, but they're doing the IPAs a little bit more lighter? I'm wondering if it's to do with the commercial side of things, because you know, Brewdog, I mean, they watered down the punk IPA to try and get more people drinking it and, you know, drinking these beers, which obviously, you know, James Watt is a businessman. First and foremost, he is a businessman. He's not this kind of craft beer enthusiast that the likes that Martin Dickey is, to be quite honest. I mean, I'll say that straight up. He is, you know, he's a lawyer, he's a businessman. Brewdog for him is a money-making machine. That's how it goes. But what they used to do in the early day was far better than this. I mean, this is just, it's almost like playing it safe. It's like not experimenting in the way that they used to. yeah. So for me, this one, malt. Let's start with the malt base then. It's got a little bit of a kind of bready note to it. You can feel the pale malt just blanket in the middle of your palate. As it goes further into the aftertaste, there's a little bit of a grainy note starts to come out of this one. There's a little touch of a biscuity sweetness to it. Compared to what I remember from the hardcore, this one doesn't have the sweetness to cover up the alcohol like hardcore did. You can, the booziness in this one, it is kind of quite obvious. It's not that well covered. I mean, I think it needs a little bit more of a caramel, this beer, or something like that, or like a two-row. You know, it needs a little bit of that sweetness, and it's lacking in that a little bit, and you can taste the booze and the malt base of this one. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, as you come further forward on this one, it's a little bit, you know, it's floral, it has got a little bit of that floral quality, there is a little bit of the piney resin in there, but you know, when they're calling it a hop hacker, like a Savage Double IPA, you'd expect this one to be around the kind of, you know, you'd expect it to blow your face off in terms of the hoppiness, to be honest, but it doesn't do that. But yeah, I mean, round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and then behind the front curve of the tongue, you've got that little oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. So with this one, there's a little touch of mango there. You can feel that that's kind of forming the linchpin of the beer. I think there's a little bit of a, you know, there is a little bit of, I would say, kind of passion fruit or something there. As you go further into the aftertaste, you're getting a little bit of, you know, the lychees, a little bit of lychee gooseberry thing. I do suspect there's citra in this beer. Pretty sure about that. There's a little bit of a pineapple-y note to it. As I say, I wonder, it could either just be Simcoe, or it might be a little bit of Galaxy, or maybe Ella or something like that that's in there. It's got that passion fruit kind of pineapple pairing to it. I would say that about this one. Yeah, it's more of a tropical one. I don't think, to be honest, I don't think there's mosaic in this one. Going by the taste, I mean, I was picking up a little bit of blueberry in the aroma, but I don't think so with this one. I think this is maybe, I think it's maybe Citra, and either there could be some Simcoe in there, or it might well be something along the lines of Ella or Galaxy. I've got a feeling that's what's in this one. As I say, I always like guessing the hops when you don't know. I always think that's quite an interesting game. I think there will be something like that in this one, but it's got a nice, the light, pardon me, the lychees and the gooseberries come out a little bit just on the front of the tongue there. When you go further into the aftertaste, a little bit of that booziness is kind of lingering there. There's some of the biscuity malts, there's a little bit of the breadiness in there as well, and you've got some of that kind of floral hoppy quality. It does have a little bit of a bitter kick to it, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, what I would say about this one is there's nothing overly wrong with it, but again, you hold Brewdog to high standards because of what they did back in the day, and for their standards, this one is, you know, it is quite disappointing, to be quite honest with you. I mean, even their Hazy Jane, they did a great job with Hazy Jane from what I remember, and they've changed the recipe again. You're just like, why did you do that? Like, what was the point in changing the recipe for a beer that you had that was really, really solid? I mean, I don't know why they do this sort of thing, if it's to appeal to get more and more people actually drinking their beers. I think that probably what it is what it is with Brewdog, to be honest. But the other beer tubers like Peter at the Clueless Drinker and the other guys there, they've been telling me they're members of the fanzine of Brewdog, which was a really good opportunity to get the big beer nerds back on board with them. But a lot of people are telling me that that was a majorly missed opportunity from Brewdog. But I mean, as I say, nothing overly wrong with this beer, but nothing particularly exciting. You want exciting things from Brewdog, and granted, you know, they're not going to produce every time, but I find it difficult with Brewdog because their dark beers remain pretty solid to me. I really like some of their dark beers, but then the IPAs, you're just kind of like, what has actually happened here? You know, I don't really understand that at all, to be quite honest. So yeah, that's one of the kind of strange things with Brewdog. In terms of the mouthfeel of this beer then, mid-bodied, Carbonation is fairly smooth. It leans towards the oily side of things, this beer. It does have that kind of West Coast mouthfeel to it. Nice little bit of hoppy bitterness. I would guess it's somewhere around the 60 IBU mark, somewhere around that kind of level. A little bit of juicy fruitiness. Malt base, I think, could do with a little bit of plumping up. It could do with a little bit of caramel or two-row or something like that in there, because you can pick up the boozy flavours in this one. It's not that the booze isn't that well covered in this beer, I would say. But overall, you know, it's okay. Nothing overly wrong with it, but nothing exciting. And unfortunately, that seems to be the kind of the regular story with Brewdog when it comes to IPAs these days. So yeah, hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully they can pick it up and start doing some interesting things. You do have to wonder what's going on at Brewdog when they can do the dark beers so well, but the IPAs are kind of seriously lacking at the moment. So yeah, we'll just need to see how it goes. But yeah, that's all I really want to say about this beer. Let me know your own thoughts on it in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brewdog. Let me know your opinion on the kind of light-dark divide, if you like, when it comes to Brewdog as well. I'd be really interested to hear that. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comment section below. Like I said, check out my social media, and I will catch you guys very soon. This was the Hop Hacker, supposedly savage double IPA from Brewdog at 8.7%. I'm sure you'll see me review some more beers from them in the future, but I could well be tempted to stick to the dark beers when it comes to Brewdog reviews. But until the next time, it's landed just now, and I will catch you guys later. Skål!